We are looking at a visual representation of the Svamantavya Mantavya Prakasha, the culminating 51-point taxonomy of the Arya Samaj. Our objective is to map this entire framework chronologically from its first principle to its last. This is the original Sanskrit manuscript. As a primary source text, it carries significant historical weight, laid out with rigorous, itemized precision rather than sprawling prose. This photograph shows its author, Swami Dayanatha Saraswati. He approaches this work by organizing reality into specific, testable categories. He defines his foundational concept, Sanatana Nitya Dharma, as a universal system of ethics. His text posits that a true dharma must be one that no person, regardless of their background, could reasonably oppose. Dayananda rejects any claim of novelty. He clarifies that his project is the extraction of eternal Vedic truths that already exist rather than the invention of a new dogma. This document operates as a forensic filter. It is designed to explicitly strip away centuries of accumulated tradition to reveal a foundational, logical reality beneath. Before analyzing the universe, the text establishes the prerequisites for the observer. It defines a true human as someone who actively exercises reason, empathizes with the joys and sorrows of others, and defies powerful oppressors to protect the weak. Citing specific shlokas from Bhartrihari and the Mahabharata, the text lays out a strict mandate. An individual must adhere to justice, regardless of whether they acquire wealth, receive high praise, or face the imminent threat of death. The ultimate path for this rational actor is encapsulated in a single principle: truth alone triumphs, or Satyameva Jayate. The implication is clear. Only a morally courageous and rationally consistent mind can accurately perceive the truth of the 51 tenets that follow. Node 1 maps Ishwar as the omnipotent, perfectly just creator. Node 2 classifies the Vedas as self-evident truths. Node 3 defines Dharma strictly as adherence to impartial justice. Node 4 defines the eternal, finite soul. Node 5 resolves God and soul as distinct, inseparable entities. Item 6 categorizes 3 permanent entities that were never created: God, the soul, and matter. Item 7 introduces Pravaha se Anadi. Matter operates in a beginningless, continuous flow, elements constantly combining into forms and separating back into base states. Items 8 and 9 address Srishti, or creation, and its purpose. Creation is the intelligent organization of inert matter to allow souls to experience the exact consequences of their actions. Item 10 addresses the creator, reiterating that inert matter lacks the agency to organize itself into this complex theater without God's active intelligence. The universe, as defined by these first 10 points, is an active, observable mechanism running on eternal laws, establishing the exact parameters for human action. Node 11 represents bondage, involuntary suffering caused by ignorance and sinful acts. Nodes 12 and 13 define liberation as freedom attained through righteous conduct and intense effort before returning to the cycle. Items 14 and 15 analyze artha and kama. Wealth and desire are valid pursuits, but only when achieved strictly through dharma. Item 16 outlines varnashrama. A person's position is determined entirely by their merit and actions, completely rejecting birthright. Items 17 and 18 detail the reciprocal relationship of the state. A just, impartial king relies on subjects who are obligated to cultivate righteous qualities. Item 19 defines the Nyayakari, the just person. This is an individual who systematically discards untruth to desire universal welfare. In Dayananda sociology, social standing and spiritual liberation are earned exclusively through righteous action. Note 20 rationalizes traditional mythological categories. Devas are defined as scholars. Asuras are the ignorant. Rakshasas are sinners, and Pishachas are the corrupt. This historical photograph shows orthodox religious practices. Item 21 reforms this behavior by defining true Deva Puja as honoring living scholars, teachers, and just rulers, while strictly rejecting the worship of inert idols. Items 22 and 23 define education as the total eradication of ignorance and classify only specific ancient texts as true Puranas, rejecting later sectarian writings. Item 24 redefines pilgrimage. It rejects travel to physical bodies of water. A true tirtha consists strictly of righteous actions, like study and truth, that ferry a person across suffering. Item 25 establishes the supremacy of present human effort over past destiny. Items 26 through 28 outline the 16 sacraments and strictly prohibit any post-cremation rituals. Yajna is redefined as the scientific application of knowledge for universal benefit. This view of the Himalayas marks the northern border of Aryavarta as defined in Item 30. Prior to this, Item 29 defines Arya and Dasyu not as ethnic groups, but as moral categories, the noble versus the wicked. Geography, mythology, and destiny are all subordinated to rational human action, dismantling orthodox ritual entirely. Nodes 31 through 35 map society's intellectual ecosystem: teachers, students, and honest priests. Item 36 defines gentlemanly conduct as acquiring knowledge through discipline and hard evidence. Item 37 outlines pramana, mandatory acceptance of 8 valid structural proofs, beginning with direct perception. Item 36 defines gentlemanly conduct, or shishtachara. It is the acquisition of knowledge through discipline and the discernment of truth via hard evidence. Item 38 defines a true authority, a truthful, righteous, universal philanthropist. Item 39 establishes pariksha, a verification process. Truth must strictly align with God's nature, the 8 pramanas, natural law, the conduct of authorities, and personal conscience. Item 40 defines philanthropy as actions that actively eradicate human vice and suffering. Truth is not a revelation to be passively received. It is a hypothesis that must survive a multi-tiered forensic examination. Node 41 visualizes the dynamic of free will. Souls are free when committing actions, but they are strictly bound by God's system when receiving the consequences. Items 42 and 43 define heaven and hell strictly as states of special happiness or suffering based on action. They are firmly rejected as physical locations. Items 44 and 45 define birth as the soul's assumption of a physical body and death as their separation. Items 46 and 47 detail marriage as rule-based mutual consent. They also explain niyoga as a pragmatic, sanctioned generation of progeny during specific crises. Items 48, 49, and 50 govern interaction with the divine. Praise is understanding divine attributes. Prayer is seeking assistance only after maximum personal effort. Meditation is realizing proximity to the divine. Item 51 concludes with a dual approach to God, praising Him for the attributes He possesses, and praising Him by acknowledging the flaws He is entirely free from. The 51 points form a closed, logically consistent loop. Human agency dictates the soul's journey, mediated by an impersonal, perfectly just universe. Pulling back to view the entire illuminated matrix, the scale of this taxonomy becomes clear. The author proposed this framework as a means to resolve sectarian conflict by establishing a common logical ground. Dayananda observed that these competing, unverified dogmas serve only to ensnare humanity in mutual enmity and intellectual darkness. The final thesis of the text is that the global propagation of this rationalist framework is designed to unify humanity, eliminate hatred, and promote universal prosperity across all stages of life. In his closing invocation, he relies on both the grace of an omnipotent God and the active support of truthful scholars to spread this truth globally. The text concludes with the Vedic Shantipath, invoking peace upon the physical universe, divine forces, and ultimate reality, followed by his formal sign-off. The Svamantavya Mantavya Prakasha represents a 19th century effort to address human division through a singular, rigorous logical framework.